Hi again, year 11. This is my next video, and today what we're going to be focusing on is question 1 and question 2 on AQA's paper 2 English language exam. And question 1 on section A is only out of 4 marks. But you want to make sure that you can pick up as many of these 4 marks as you can, because trust me, when papers come in for remarks, quite often it's only 1 mark that a kid will need to be able to get from a GCSE grade 3 to a grade 4, for example. So you really want to maximise the number of marks that you get on question 1. So just to remind you again, question 1 is the true or false one. So it's always been based on source A, as far as I've ever seen, but you might want to just double check what it says on the paper. So we're looking at source A, we're looking at lines 1 to 10 in source A, and from those lines you have to choose 4 statements which are true. Okay, and what you will want to do with those 4 statements is, when you found them, colour in the blobs. What you can always do down at the bottom of this paper here is maybe really lightly just write down the ones that you think are true and see how many you've got. If you've got too few, then you've gone wrong somewhere. If you've got too many, then you're going to need to get rid of one of them. So what I'm going to suggest that you do now, if you haven't already, is pause this video and read through source A and source B. Time yourself how long that takes, as we discussed in the previous video. And then when you've come to the end of that time, go back to source A and really carefully reread lines 1 to 10, bearing in mind all of these questions, and then have a go at answering question 1. Okay, so you're going to read source A, number 1. Number 2, read source B. And number 3, reread lines 1 to 10 in source A and colour in the 4 statements that you think are true. Pause the video now. Don't forget to time yourself when you're reading to see how long it takes, and do question 1. After you unpause, I'm going to tell you what the answers are and give you a few tips and hints. Okay, here you go. So let's compare your answers to the correct answers. So the correct answers are D, E, F, and G. So you can see what I've done here just to demonstrate. I'm pretending that I put A was true and I realised it was false, so I just put a neat cross through it. If I change my mind again, I'd have to put a circle round that. So your correct answers are D, E, F, and G, and you can see where I've just coloured in the little blobs there. If we have a look at A, the reason why that's wrong is it says if you ask most people who regularly ride a bike in Britain, they'll say that they've had a nasty accident at some stage. Okay, so it doesn't say, actually it says further on in the text, pitifully few people do ride a bike, so it's definitely not A. B, it says most UK cyclists are pleased about the number of dangerous incidents on the road. I'd say that's fairly obviously false, even if you haven't read the article, but do make sure that you read the article, because they might say something ludicrous in the true or false. You never ever know. It says here the writers never had a dangerous incident whilst cycling. Well, the writer's telling us an anecdote about a dangerous incident they were in kind of just the other day, so that's blatantly untrue. It's true the writer says I'm cycling near my home in southeast London, so that one's true. This one you really have to use inference for. As the car passed, the writer did not swerve. So he doesn't actually say he didn't swerve. He just says, if I'd have swerved, it could have been really nasty. And because it wasn't nasty, we're using our inference and deduction to work out, well, clearly he didn't swerve then, and that's why he's come out of that okay. The writer soon caught up with the driver, yet he said, like, I cycled to the next junction, and there he was. So we know that that one's true. And then that leads on to G, doesn't it? The writer thought the driver's actions have been pointless. Yeah, what was the point of kind of pushing the cyclist off into the curb, basically, because they've just caught up with him 2 seconds later anyway. And then the last one, it's rare to meet dangerous drivers whilst cycling. We've basically seen from everything in those lines that that is patently untrue as well. So those are the 4, and you can see the pattern there. If you're marking out that pattern, you might almost be tricked a bit into thinking that that can't be right, like 4 in a line like that, but it is. So do be aware that they can try and do that with multi-choice answers like these. Okay, so that's your true or false. Those are your correct answers. You might want to write your score on your paper as you're working through it and think about where you went wrong if you didn't manage to get 4 out of 4. So here are my tips for question 1. I don't want to bang on about it too much. Only select 4. If you manage to select 5, you'll have to use some common sense to see which one you're going to cross out. For goodness sake, use the correct lines. Don't answer from something which isn't in the 10 lines. For this one, it's different from paper 1, where you have to write the 4 statements. In this one, you have to use inference and deduction. It really is a big step up from paper 1. It's tougher paper 2. Keep your eyes peeled for facts. So things like statistics, months, seasons, times of the year, numbers. Sometimes they do really cruel things like kind of make you do maths in this. Sometimes they would do something like it will say June in the article, and then it will talk about summer and the true or false. And you have to use your common sense to know that June is in summer. Okay, so things like that, they'll try and catch you out on. It's a bit of a naughty question, I think. Not this particular one, but I've seen other examples of that. What you could do is you could do it in pencil, and then when you're sure you've got your 4 correct ones, go over them in pen to save all this kind of crossing out and circling stuff. And then as we said before, if you change your mind, cross out the whole box neatly like I've done just here. Okay, and then if you want to reinstate it, the circle, but it says all that in the instructions over here. So that's question 1. The only other thing that I would say is please do base it on 1 to 10. There are a couple of answers which, as I said, as we were going through them, you could use your own general knowledge or your own common sense, but please stick to what it says in the lines, just in case they make a sarcastic comment and then they true or false you on it. Okay, so stick to the lines. Right, we are going to move on in this video to question 2 now. So here's question 2, and on this November 2018 paper, they've thrown you a slightly curved ball because it's a bit different from some of the other questions. So for question 2, it says you need to refer to source A and source B. It's fair enough. And in this one, it says both sources describe the similar ways in which drivers behave. Using details from both sources, write a summary of what you understand about the similar behaviour of the drivers. Now, 9 times out of 10, they're asking you to look for the differences on paper 2, question 2. So this one is getting you to look for similarities. And in a way, that messes up a bit the way that I always try and get you to plan, because it's really difficult to do it in a grid when you're looking for things that are similar. However, that is what we're going to do to plan it. We're going to read through both of those texts, which hopefully you've just done. So it should be fresh in your mind. And just think of your statements. What's similar about the behaviour of the drivers? So this time we're going to find similarities, but when we're summarising them, we're going to find probably differences when we're using our inference. So pause the video and see how many similarities between source A and source B you can find in just the behaviour of the drivers. Okay, just the behaviour of the driver. So pause, make a list of the similarities, and we'll compare your list to my list. Okay, this is what I came up with. So similarities is the drivers in both of the sources pass and overtake much too closely to the cyclists. Another similarity is both sets of drivers get frustrated that cyclists go too slowly, especially in bad congested traffic. Both drivers in both sources challenge cyclists at junctions, so either try and beat them to the junction, or they would deliberately cut in front of them at the junction or cut out ahead of them at the junction. And both sets of drivers end up leaving the cyclists feeling emotionally troubled, a little bit terrified at the end of their ordeal. So when we're thinking about SQIs, these are basically going to be my statements. What I need to do next is find some evidence to back these up. And what I'm going to do with that evidence is the evidence is going to be half little quotations and half kind of summarizing up the evidence in my own words. Okay, so kind of almost expanding on this statement and then putting the evidence in. Now, remember, on the inference, you're saying what this suggests. Then it could be what it suggests about attitudes of drivers. It could be what it suggests about the vehicle that they're driving. It could be what it suggests about have times changed between the Victorian period and the 21st century. So those are the kind of inferences we're going to find, but we can't make inferences without our evidence. Now, what I've done for you on the next page and the page after that is I've kind of worked through my thought process. And what I've gone for is probably out of these four similarities, one that I think was most difficult, which is the last one. Both sets of drivers leave the cyclist feeling terrified. So let's have a look at my example answer. So for my statement, I've put here, I need to compare and contrast one of the behaviours of the cyclists. And this one, I've changed terrified to a whirl of emotions, you can see here. So my statement is, in both sources, drivers leave cyclists in a whirl of emotions after near misses. And this is the evidence that I've picked out. So for source A, I've picked out this evidence. Most people who ride a bike will, quote, happily recount a list of terrifying or alarming incidents, end of quotation, usually caused by someone, starting quotation again, in a motor vehicle. So can you see how I've mashed my own words together with the evidence of the quotation just here so that it kind of rolls smoothly along? And then my evidence, my quotation for source B is, ladies on bikes are the prey, so just a little embedded quotation, the prey to hansom cabmen. So a hansom cab is like a taxi cab, doesn't mean they're handsome, and I've spelt it wrong. Okay, remember the glossary. Who, quote, try to kill them. And my inferences are here. Drivers in both sources regularly threaten cyclists. So we're getting the idea it's regular occurrence, with aggressive behaviour from their cars in source A and using horse-drawn taxis in source B. But whilst Walker, remember the surname of the first man, the writer, highlights the seriousness of these incidents due to the fact he sees cars as killing machines, the Countess tries to make a joke of it, perhaps because she knows that as a woman she is fighting sexist Victorian attitudes and wants to warn her female readers what to expect. So I kind of chunked that down into S, Q, and I for you. Let's put it all together in a model paragraph. So this is what it sounds like. In both sources, thoughtless drivers use no, they don't. In both sources, thoughtless drivers cause near-miss accidents and leave cyclists in emotional turmoil. In source A, we learn that most people who ride a bike will happily recount a list of the terrifying or alarming incidents caused by the driver of a motor vehicle. Similarly, look at that link. So there's our comparison there. Similarly, in source B, ladies on bikes are the prey to hansom cabmen who try to kill them. Drivers in both sources regularly threaten cyclists with aggressive behaviour from their cars in source A and using horse-drawn taxis in source B. But whilst Walker highlights the seriousness of these incidents due to the fact he sees cars as killing machines, the Countess tries to make a joke of this new sport of being chased. I've brought in another little quotation there as well to add to my inference. Perhaps because she knows that as a woman, she is fighting sexist Victorian attitudes to women on bikes and wants to warn her female readers what to expect. So you can see how I've kind of polished up my points there and put them into a really smooth paragraph. Now, the mark scheme on this one works in the normal way. You can have simple and limited, which will give you a 1 or 2 out of 8. You can have some attempt, which will give you a 3 or 4 out of 8 on this one. You can have a clear summary and clear inference, and that's going to give you 5 or 6 out of 8 on this one. Or you can have detailed and perceptive inference. I probably, just on this paragraph, mind you, I'd need to do some more comparisons to get my full marks. I think this is just tipping into maybe not perceptive, but definitely detailed in my comparison. I've been kind of relentless, almost like a dog with a bone, like picking away and really, really comparing all the way through. And I've really thought about my inferences carefully. I'm not sure I've said anything that's going to set anybody's world on fire, but I've really been kind of relentless, like I said, in just going through my inference. Now, hopefully what you're really noticing on this question is I'm always saying this is what it suggests. This is what it implies. I'm not zooming in on the language here, because that's not what summarizing is about. It's not about picking the language to pieces. It is about saying what this suggests, what I can infer, what these words imply. And we're always thinking about the different viewpoints, the different attitudes, and the different thoughts of the writer, and comparing those. So that's the end of me talking. What I want you to have a go at now is to have a go at doing 1 or 2 of these other statements and turning those into SQI paragraphs. Okay, you've got your model 1 here. If you want, you can pause the video and copy that model 1 down before you have a go at doing your own one. But similarly, when you do your own one, time yourself and see how long it takes. If you're doing this in class, it would be really good if your teacher timed you for 8 minutes, because that's how long you'll have in the exam, which is a terrifying thought, to be quite honest with you, comparing and trying to make lots of comparisons in such a short space of time. Good luck with that, and I will see you for the next video where we will talk about question 3. Bye bye.